Welcome to the Primitive Lifeways channel. You know, in North America, some of the most advanced bows were the Hupa bows. These were often very short, wide, sinew-backed, beautifully decorated, and extremely lethal. In today's video series, my friend Mark Swanson and I want to take you step by step in exactly how to make a Hupa type bow. So stick around, we got a great series coming up. All right, so here is our yew wood log. This was harvested in 2011, so it's well seasoned, and it's a really nice big diameter log, so we have a lot of room to play with. It's very straight as well. It doesn't have any twists or any bend to it. The growth rings are really close too, so this is a really nice stave. But what I want to do right now is I want to remove this sapwood. I've been slowly chipping away at it off camera, but you can see the difference in color. The sapwood has this white color and the heartwood has a reddish tan kind of brown color to it. And that's what we want. The back of the bow and the entire structure will be a combination of heartwood and sinew. I remove this sapwood using a thin knife. You can use a hatchet if you're real careful, a draw knife, a rasp. Again, whatever you're comfortable with. And I'll drag through and pull through the knots. You know, since we're sinew backing it, it doesn't matter. You can chip away at it and you don't have to worry about violating any ring structure or any knot in particular. Some of the old bows in California would have a little bit of sapwood on the side, but we have plenty of room to work with, as I mentioned before, plenty of width. So I doubt that I'll have any on the side. So I'll just, again, continue on removing all this sapwood. And once I'm done, I'll be right back with you. All right, so here's our stave. You can see we have all this heartwood exposed, and I only have 3 knots on the back. That's really not that bad. So this is a really clean piece of wood. I do have a bit of sapwood still on the tips. I can take that off with a draw knife, but I already started removing a bit of the crown with a rasp and with my knife, but we can get that reduced a bit more later on. What I want to do though right now is take this over to a workbench, get a draw knife to it, and start removing belly wood. I'll get that thinned down quite a bit. One other thing I like to do when I'm removing large amounts of wood on the belly is I'll take a small draw knife and I'll just even everything up. I'll look for some of the high spots in the wood and I'll just remove those. Well, here we are. You can see that I removed quite a bit of this belly wood on this stave. We still got a lot to remove. This is still very, very thick, and it's not going to give it all, but I wanted to leave it thick because I have some high spots and some low spots on the back, and I need to get that all planed out so it's all one even level, and I want to slightly crown the top of it. That'll come a little bit later on, but man, we just got pelted with snow the last several days, so I had to wait and put this project on hold till it started melting down quite a bit. This wood just sucks up any moisture it can get. So what we did during that time is Mark and I etched out the dimensions of the bow itself, and I'll have him explain that to you right now.
Okay, what I want to show you here, we're going to do a little video here on how we lay this bow out, how we're going to lay this thing out. But before I did that, I wanted to at least illustrate some of the different profiles of the California type paddle bows. Now in my mind, and this is not an absolute because within a tribe you're going to have variations. Each bowyer is going to make it differently, even though he may be from the same area, same tribe. Each guy's got his own idea how things should be done. The four profiles that I have here are a Hupa Yurok style. This one right here is a Modoc style. This one here, even though it's not drawn all that great, is a Pit River or Ahumawi type bow. And then this bow over here is Ishi's style of bow. The one we're after, what I wanted to do is illustrate to you, because the way I'm laying this out will be applicable to just about any type of bow, is how the limbs were distributed, the way they distributed the mass and the limbs. With the Yurok Hupa and several others, they threw the width of the limb right in the center of the limb. So the widest part of the limb is in the very center. With the Modoc, they threw the width of the limb down closer to the handle and then tapered it up to the knock area. The Pit River or Ahumawi and others did something very similar to what the Yurok Hupa did, but it's elongated. These bows here, the Yurok Hupa bows, were 2 to 2 1/4 inches wide. These Pit River type bows or Ahumawi bows were narrower. They're about 1 3/4 inches wide, but the width of the limb is in the center of the limb again. It's just longer and a little narrower. Now with Ishi, his bows were 1 3/4 inches wide also. But what he did is he elongated the working mass of the limb, and he threw parallel limbs. His limbs were parallel and then tapered down at the very tip in the last 4 inches or so, 3 to 4 inches of the limb. And then they didn't have very much of a fade up here. The handles on these bows are fairly wide, generally 1.5 1/4 to 1.5 wide. So what we're going to do is we want to demonstrate how we lay out this limb here, the Pit River, or I'm not Pit River, but the Yurok Hupa limb. Now you could do the same thing with any of them. The methodology is the same. It's just where you put the limb width is all I'm trying to demonstrate. So hopefully that'll help out. Okay. Let me throw a tape on here and we'll see how long this thing is going to be. Now this thing was actually longer, and Jeff has cut off some and done a little bit of shaping. So we're measuring out about 46.5 inches. So basically what you want to do is you want to find center of the bow. That's this 23-inch mark right here. This is the very center of the bow. Then what you're going to do is you make a mark there, obviously, as we have done. This is center. Now what I prefer to do is to then come to the end of the bow and mark out my knock area. And my preferred method, I'm laying this out so that there's plenty of room to take wood off. If you take wood off too fast, you can never put it back on. So the idea is to lay it out initially oversized so that you can take it and reduce it and refine it as you go. So basically we come down here, we say, okay, we're going to go right here with it. We got 46 inches. I come down here an inch for the knock. Now that'll eventually be shorter, but I'm leaving myself room to play with. So I establish my knock mark right here, and we do the same thing on both limbs. Come down an inch on the end. This knock may end up being about 3/4 of an inch, but like I said, I'm trying to lay it out to give me room to play as I proceed in the removal of wood. Okay, so now I've got the center of the bow, I have my knock, which the length of this bow is going to be 44 inches knock to knock. I always think in terms of knock to knock, not tip to tip. So we've got, let's throw it on there again, get the tape out. From the knock to the knock, we've got 44-inch bow. Then from the handle to the knock, we find center again. We're finding the mid-limb area. Well, there's 22 inches, so mid limb is going to be 11. So we make a mark at 11 inches. And we do the same thing on both sides. And I generally will put a big letter C showing the center of the limb. Now my handle area, some of these handles are really wide. We have laid out the handle on this bow at 1.5 inches wide. I generally like 1.25 inches, but like I said, we're going wide, we're going oversized, so that we can take it off if we need to. We're just laying this thing out for initial removal of wood. So we laid out 1.5 inches at the center of the handle. Now for the width on either side of the center, I laid out 2 inches. 2 inches of parallel area where the limb will be the same width. So then I run my marks, run my line on either side of the center, so that I have my parallel section. Ultimately, this is all going to be rounded in to create this rounded profile of the Hupa. So we do that on both sides. And I just, no real reason, just gave myself 2 inches, again, giving myself extra room to play with. Made 2 inches on either side. Then what I did is I go from the center line to my 2-inch line here on either side of center, and I went from center up to here. I went from center up to here. And I do that on both sides. Now this handle area, if you want it to be parallel, that can always be done later. Like I said, we're just trying to lay it out oversized so that you got room to play with. And then basically on the knock area, the knocks are going to end up about 3/4 of an inch wide, maybe a little bit less. So in order to give myself room, I'm going to lay it out at 1 inch wide at the knock, and then again take my straight edge and go from the 2-inch mark on the other side, on the up side of the center, and go from there to the knock, and from here back to the center line again. So what I'm doing, and I'm doing this on both sides, as you can see, then I've just basically roughed in what is going to be a knock. Ultimately, when he takes this wood off, we'll just carry this line all the way down, and then later on come back in here with the knock. So we're doing that on both sides, laying the lines out, making the lines, and then basically creating a basic oversized Hupa Yurok profile.